First on Fox 6 for years, he was second in command. But after Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm stepped down, Kent Lovern is no longer waiting in the wings.
And Maybin sat down with him with this one-on-one.
I'm a different person than my predecessor. I admire him greatly. We're very close friends, but I'm a different person.
Kent Lovern is no stranger to the pressure and politics that come with being Milwaukee County District Attorney. He's worked in the office for over 26 years, most recently as Chief Deputy DA under John Chisholm. Now Lovern is stepping into the role.
What is your number one thing that you want to accomplish right away?
Well, I think we have to just continue to tackle very quickly the violent crime problem we're facing in the community. I would say the other issue that is of deep concern to me personally has been domestic violence. We've seen a high rate of domestic violence homicides over the last several years, and we need to better connect with those who are most vulnerable in situations related to family violence, because right now, we're not seeing as many people back accessing those services as we need.
So how do you plan to lead this office differently than your predecessor?
Well, clearly, we have to continue to be very, very responsive. We've had prosecutors in the neighborhoods for a long time now that have done really great work intersecting with neighborhoods and the police departments in those neighborhoods. I think we need to just take that to another level and build on that and connect people in neighborhoods who are concerned with safety, but maybe aren't connected to economic opportunity.
What do you think is driving violent crime in Milwaukee right now?
I think it's complex. I think there are a number of issues here. Certainly the pandemic contributed to the rise in crime, and we saw that nationwide. We saw big spikes in violent crime. We have to continue, though, to look at some of the gaps we see in our community. Gaps related to poverty, gaps related to home ownership, because what we do know is the neighborhoods that have high rates of home ownership and high rates of family-sustaining jobs do not have high rates of crime.
How exactly do you plan to make Milwaukee safer?
Well, one thing we have to do is on violent crime, there has to be a very strong response to that, and that has to be unequivocal. And by violent crime, I mean not only the shootings we see and the sexual assaults we see, but clearly the reckless driving that we have seen now for several years that has frightened everyone has got to be treated as a violent crime, and we'll receive a response from this office in terms of the charges and the recommendations. We don't sentence people, but in terms of the recommendations we make in court, that reflects that there needs to be a strong response to that type of behavior.
I'm a really big, how exactly? So how exactly do you plan to be tougher on violent crime in Milwaukee?
Well, we've already said very clearly to our staff, even going back now over, the past year or two, when we've seen this rise of certainly the reckless driving, is you just need to make recommendations that include a jail or prison recommendation. That may not mean everyone goes to prison, but every sentence recommendation we make has got to include some sort of recommendation for time behind bars. It just does.
The Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office came under fire after the Waukesha Christmas Parade tragedy. The driver of the SUV was out of jail on low bond before the attack, sparking debate on bond and bail reform.
Through state law changes and constitutional law changes, the concept of what bail is established for changed, and it actually put a greater emphasis on the seriousness of the crime and the prior history of the offender. So now we're in a position to go into court and focus more of our attention on the nature of the crime and the nature of the history of an offender, if there is one, and use that as a basis for seeking a stronger bail recommendation in the cases that deserve it.
What's your greatest challenge right now?
One is an internal challenge, and that relates to the funding of our office, because our office has always relied on some federal grant funding, and some of that grant funding is expiring very soon, and this office needs to be fully funded. It needs to be supported financially in order for us to do the work we need to do, not only in Milwaukee County, but in the greater Milwaukee region.
For people who live in Milwaukee County, what do you really want them to know right now?
Well, I'm a person deeply committed to this community. I think I've demonstrated that over my career. I have a boundless energy, which might surprise a few people because, I can be fairly low-key at times. What we need to do in this community, in my view, is we just need to better connect to one another and to the good work that's going on in a lot of places in this community right now. And we're small enough to do that. We are a small Major League NBA city here, and we need to, that's our advantage from my standpoint, that we need to really make the most of here.
In Milwaukee County, Maybin, Fox 6 News.